Alright, in part 2 of section 5-3, solving quadratic equations by factoring, we're going to look at actually solving them now. So last part we looked at how to factor, so now we need to use that information to be able to solve these. Alright, so using that, we have the zero product property. So what the zero product property says, anything times 0 must be 0. So if there's two things that are unknown and they're set equal to 0, that means one of them must be equal to 0 for it to be true. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So solve x squared equals 6x by factoring. So to solve any quadratic, it must be set equal to 0. So to get this set equal to 0, we need to look at x squared equals 6x. Now, we want, if we can, we want the x squared to be positive. So to get it set equal to 0, we're going to subtract 6x from both sides. So we get x squared minus 6x equals 0. Now we're going to look at, we're going to use our factoring method. So between x squared and 6x, all I can see is they share an x. So I'm going to take out an x, and all I'm left with is x minus 6. So I have x times x minus 6 is equal to 0. So to solve this, if I'm solving for 0, the only way, one of those two factors must be 0. So x could be equal to 0, or x minus 6 could be equal to 0. Well, x equal to 0 is already done, so that one's done for me. But x minus 6 equals 0, all I have to do, solve for x. So I have x equals 6. So to make our original equation x squared equals 6x true, x could be equal to 0, or x could be equal to 6. And those are our answers. Okay. So here we go. Let's continue. 6x squared equals 1 minus x. So once again, it's a quadratic. So to solve anything or any quadratic, it must be set equal to 0. So I'm going to add x to both sides. So I get 6x squared plus x is equal to 1. And then I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So I get 6x squared plus x minus 1 is equal to 0. So now I need to factor this. Okay. So remembering the method shown in the last video, 6x squared plus x minus 1. I'm just factoring right now, so I'm not worried about the equal 0. So I need to multiply the first and the last. So 6 times negative 1 gives me negative 6. And what are two factors of negative 6 that would add up to a positive 1? Because there's a positive 1 in front of the x. So, well, 3 times negative 2, adding those two would give us a positive 1. So we can split into negative 2x plus 3x minus 1, and then 6x squared out front. So now I can use my grouping method. So in the front group, 6x squared minus 2x, I can take out a 2x, and all I'm left with is 3x minus 1. And in the second one, well, there's nothing I can take out. If there's nothing you can take out a 1, because 1 doesn't change it. And like we normally get, we get that common in the middle. So I take what's common, 3x minus 1, and then I take what's left. So I have 2x plus 1. So my factor, so 6x squared plus x plus minus 1 factors into 3x minus 1 times 2x plus 1. So now that's equal to 0. So to solve for x, one of those two must be 0. So I'm going to take both of them and set them equal to 0. So I get 3x minus 1 equals 0, or 2x plus 1 equals 0. So let's start solving. So add 1 here. You get 3x equals 1 divided by 3. So x equals 1/3. Or, now on the other side, subtract 1. We get 2x equals negative 1 divided by 2. So we get x equals negative 1/2. So my possible answers for this problem are x equals 1/3 or x equals negative 1/2. So there you go. One more. solve x squared minus 16x plus 64 is equal to 0. So now, if we get good enough, we can actually see this factor. This is a perfect square trinomial, but the method I taught you earlier does still work. So if I have x squared minus 16x plus 64, well, there's a 1 here, so if I multiply the 1 and the 64, I just get 64. So factors of 64 that would add up to negative 16, well, negative 8 times negative 8. So this could be split into x squared minus 8x minus 8x plus 64. Well, let's do a plus a negative 8x. So that way when we group, we have that negative inside the parenthesis. We need that. So we have a negative 8x right there inside the parenthesis. So in the first one, we take out an x, left with x minus 8, plus, take out a negative 8, left with x minus 8 again. So we actually just have x minus 8 times x minus 8. So they're the exact same thing. So realistically, we only have to do it one time because they're the exact same. So x minus 8 has to be equal to 0. So add 8 to both sides. So x is equal to 8. So we only have one answer in this problem, and that would be x equals 8.